Ladies and gentlemen, it finally happened. Today we do indeed have our first 34-inch 21:9 240Hz OLED monitor from MSI with their brand new MPG 341 CQP10. Now, this monitor is very special because there's been a lot of demand for this refresh rate at this size using the latest Quantum.OLED technology. So let's go ahead and take a look at it today to see if it does actually live up to the hype or if it falls flat. And in order to do so, let's go ahead and start off by taking a look at the specs. Now, the MSI MPG 341 CQPX, which was lent to me by MSI, by the way, so thank you for that, is a 34-inch 3440 by 1440 240Hz 21:9 Quantum.OLED monitor with yes, G-Sync and FreeSync support, and as always, a Display HDR True Black 400 certification. Now, the overall design, I think, looks pretty good, but unfortunately, the wires cannot be hidden well at all. So those ugly things are going to be rearing their heads at you all day long. And the piano type finish on the back of the monitor can attract dust, which could be a problem, but hey, you're not really going to be looking at it, so not too big of a deal. Also, when it comes to the stand, yes, it does tilt and it goes up and down, but unfortunately there really isn't any ability to turn clockwise or counterclockwise, which could be a problem if your room isn't level. Now, in terms of the ports, pause if you need to, but do be aware you do actually get two HDMI 2.1 ports, which is great, as well as a Type-C with 98 watt power delivery. Now, in terms of the price and the warranty, the MSRP I was informed by MSI is $899.99, which is actually a very aggressive price point for this monitor in my opinion, and the warranty is 3 years, which does actually include burn-in. Now, this monitor isn't actually available as of the recording of this video quite yet, but it will become so soon after the video goes live, likely by the end of the month, so check back for affiliate links in the description as I'll update the video as soon as it's available. Now, in terms of the actual performance of the panel, let's dive in because sure, this all sounds great, but if it's not good, then who cares? So let's take a look at the color, and I gotta say, my first impressions, as per usual with Quantum.OLED, is that the color is absolutely incredible. There's just nothing like Quantum.OLED when it comes to the sheer vibrancy and punch that you get out of not only the color that it gives you, but the infinite contrast ratio in addition. So get ready for some really vibrant and excellent looking HDR images, at least if you're in a dark room. Now, in terms of the accuracy, well, out of the box, the mode that it ships in is going to be a little bit goofy for Windows, not quite accurate as it is going to be stretching the colors as well as not following the EOTF curve properly when it comes to sRGB in Windows, but with some simple adjustments, I was able to correct it pretty well. And by the way, I will have the best settings for this monitor linked in my Patreon in the description below, which also helps fund future reviews as well. So thank you guys so much for that. And if we go ahead and we take a look at the sRGB accuracy, it is pretty good out of the box. I mean, we're talking about an average delta E of just 1.6, so I definitely consider that acceptable. And in terms of the HDR out of the box, actually not too bad, although I do gotta say that I think it does need a little bit of work when it comes to the overall color accuracy, as it's not quite as good as the sRGB mode. Now, in terms of the brightness, and this is very important for HDR, I gotta say for desktop use, it is certainly sufficient in my opinion. It does give you finally a good enough full screen brightness to not be bothersome, an issue I've had with OLED in the past, but it's just not quite bright enough for that really impactful HDR. And what I mean here is, well, let's visualize it on this chart. You can see here that the MSI MPG 341 CQP10 is unfortunately kind of trailing near the bottom of this chart in terms of HDR window brightness. Now, it is significantly behind, say, the LG OLEDs when it comes to window brightness, but it gets absolutely ruined by mini LEDs. So if you're looking for the brightest HDR experience, well, you're just not gonna get that here, at least according to test windows. But what about a real game? And once again, you can see here, kind of trailing near the bottom of the chart, and mini LED in the scene certainly shows its strengths. But even if you take a look at something like the brand new Asus XG27AQ DMG glossy OLED, well, that thing is significantly brighter, but hey, that's not an ultra-wide monitor. But now what about the actual shadow performance? And here you can see that it's actually doing pretty dang well for an OLED, giving us nearly all that shadow detail in SDR as well as HDR. But what about for gaming? Is this any good? I mean, it's 240 Hertz, but what about the latency? Well, it is pretty much where I'd expect it to be. It's a little bit behind the fastest ones that I've tested, but hey, there is room for error here, guys, with 1 to 2 milliseconds, and overall, it's certainly pretty good. And in terms of the actual motion performance, because this is an OLED, which has those near instantaneous response times, gasp, it's looking really, really good. You can start to make out at 240 Hertz that it says better than 60 Hertz on that flying UFO, and even at 120 Hertz, it does look significantly better than Mini LED at 144, but at 60 Hertz, yeah, even OLED is gonna look quite blurry, so definitely shoot for 120 Hertz or higher if you're using this display. Now, in terms of the features, it does come with a few nice ones, such as the power delivery over Type-C I mentioned, as well as KVM, and the ability to shrink the screen, although it can have some issues, so you're probably better off just using the Windows changing of resolution if you need to do that. Now, in terms of the text clarity and subpixel layout, I will say it's okay. Yeah, they've made some improvements to Quantum.OLED to try and make text a little bit better, but until they move to a regular line RGB layout, you just are going to be seeing some fringing on the edges of text, as well as a general look of almost chromatic aberration on the screen at all times, which only becomes more apparent the lower the resolution you go. So at 4K, it's not as apparent. At 1440p, which is effectively what we're looking at here, it does start to become pretty significant, and then God knows what it would look like at 1080p. I hope I never find out. But it's overall, I don't think it'll bother most people, but do be aware it is a problem. Now, in terms of the finish and the overall clarity, I gotta say, yes, it is absolutely fantastic, giving you super crisp visuals as well as super high contrast and vibrancy if you're in a light-controlled room. However, it does suffer from horrible magenta tinting or sometimes gray tinting and even a somewhat bright environment, destroying the contrast. Now, I do think that for those of you who like the game with the lights off, this won't be a problem at all. However, I would like them to move to a different glossy coating or perhaps add another layer in Quantum.OLED to try and preserve the positives that come with glossy while fixing the negatives that come along with specifically Quantum.OLED. You will notice that other glossy coatings do not have this issue. Now, in terms of the viewing angles and uniformity, it's nearly perfect, so let's move on to the menu and firmware, which is also excellent. It's very, very fast, and it does give you a lot of options. However, I would like to see MSI actually implement the ability to RGB balance on both HDR as well as the sRGB mode, which unfortunately both are missing, which can lead to, if you account for panel variants, a lot of monitors out there that just simply can't hit that perfect white point, at least until a firmware update comes out. Now, in terms of G-Sync flickering, surprisingly, I didn't see any perceivable flicker on this one, even when I really stressed it, but hey, it probably is possible if you find the right content at a very unstable frame rate. So overall, guys, I gotta say that even though this isn't the best monitor that's ever been created, full stop, when it comes to ultra-wide monitors, I will say that this is, in my opinion, the best OLED ultra-wide, nay, the best ultra-wide monitor that's ever been created. Again, it has a few issues such as not being bright enough, or maybe it's not the absolute fastest one that's been created, and it does, I think, need a firmware update to add a few little things, but I mean, 240 Hertz, excellent color, and OLED's near instantaneous response times and perfect black levels leads to an experience that I do think overall is the best I've ever had when it comes to an ultra-wide monitor. There are some other interesting monitors out there on the market, such as the dual 4K one, the Neo G9. However, 32 by 9 is very poorly supported, and while 21 by 9 does still have its issues, it's certainly getting better every year that goes by, and I think you're going to have a lot less problems running in aspect ratios such as this versus 32 by 9. So yeah, I highly recommend it, and of course, again, I will have affiliate links in the description once it becomes available. Whether you're looking to connect a new console, gaming PC, or just need a fast and reliable HDMI cable to connect over long distances, RuPro has you covered with their certified 8K HDMI 2.1 fiber optic cable available in sizes of up to 50 feet and can deliver a perfect full 48 gigabits per second connection over distances other cables could only dream of reaching. And with 48 gigabits per second of bandwidth, it can easily drive 8K 60 FPS or 4K 144 FPS 10-bit HDR video through its ultra-thin flexible and durable housing, and it even supports ER. So if you're in the market for a cable that can drive a beautiful new TV or monitor, be sure to check out RuPro on Amazon today.